Hey guys, XR student here. I got a custom moth order to make these 3 moths for a nursery. I'm so excited to make them. If you didn't know, on my Etsy, I offer custom art and some of that is moth making. So I would love to make you guys one if you are interested. Now I want to tell you about my process. I always start off by trying to make little stencil shapes of each moth so then I can make sure that wings are even on both sides. After rolling out my clay, I use an exacto knife to trace around these stencils, and then I get my moth shape. Luckily, when the clay is still fresh right out of the package, after I'm done shaping them, I'll go in with a little bit of water and clean up the edges. I like to round them off so then it's not so rough of a cut. Sometimes it won't be perfect, so here is a way to make it look more professional. Once that's done, I have to wait for these bad boys to air dry for multiple days. I decided to start with the Madagascar moon moth. I just think it's beautiful with this yellow. I thought it'd be really fun, and of course you guys know I'm always drawn to Luna moths, so might as well make something that is a yellow Luna moth. And the designs overall on this seemed pretty simple, so I thought it'd be nice to start with the simple one first. When I make these moths, I like sticking to the realistic version of them. Of course, it's not one-to-one realism, but I try following the patterns the best that I can, the color matching the best that I can, and I have a really good time. I loved all these buttery yellows and warm orange little bits. The brown went well. Normally, I would never go towards yellow and brown, but I love how it looks on this moth. I've noticed with myself when it comes to my painting technique, I do color blocking first, big chunks of color, which was the yellow. Then I was like, all right, I could do simple big strokes of the brown. Then I went in with my tiny brush to do those little details. Sometimes I debate if I should do a paint pen or a paintbrush, and I was feeling confident this day and wanted to try the paintbrush. I think because color matching is a fun challenge for me, I really wanted to get the right color, and sometimes my paint pens don't match the color that I need, so being able to mix the correct one makes it a whole lot better. In the past, when it came to these moths, I was just trying to focus on color and design, but lately I've been having a good time also adding texture, like the fuzziness on the body, or how some of the patterns are muddied up, so I'll use my finger to dab out some of the paint. My Etsy client was really kind and said I could have artistic freedom. I stuck to doing the design of the moth because that's what they wanted, and then later on I added in iridescent paint as well as glow-in-the-dark paint, but I wanted to make sure each moth looked good. As I said, this is a challenge for me and it's fun, so I like being able to match it the best that I can. Luckily, my client is so kind and open to everything. She just wanted to have yellow and blue moths for her nursery. I tested out a few paint marker colors and I settled on this one. It was closest to the reference and I felt like I had a lot of control when it came to the straighter lines. Next up is the Braca matutinata. It's this cute little fuzzy moth that has this light blue gray with a nice yellow to contrast. It's kind of primary colors with tons of dots. So this seemed like it was going to be a challenge, so I did color blocking. I painted everything blue and tried getting it to the right blue. I wet my paintbrush and had little dots of white everywhere because I noticed it was freckled with dark spots and light spots, and I wanted to continue that texture onto the moth before I added in all the yellow and black detail. I didn't like how that blue turned out, so then I added a darker one on top and then added those little dot details again. Once I was satisfied with that, I added the yellow stripes onto it, so then I could eventually put all those black dots everywhere. I was kind of nervous for this, but also excited. It was kind of hard to tell where the yellow laid because of all the dots on this moth, but I tried my best, and I also tried to mirror the same designs onto the other wing and just hoped for the best. And I figured if it wasn't perfect, I had all the dots to cover it up, so it was going to be okay. I really loved adding this little tidbit of white. I think it really pulled the colors together and made it look more realistic. Because this project was so fun, I picked up some yellow iridescent paint, blue, and green. So all colors I didn't have, because normally I wouldn't go for this, but I thought it would be the perfect shimmer that was needed for these wings. Once it was dry, it was time for all the dots. I first started out with a Posca marker, but I noticed it wasn't strong enough of a color, so I just went in with a thin brush and black. Again, the spots are not perfect, but I tried my best to follow the pattern. At first, I was just doing dots here and there and just trying to do it in that half circle motion. After a while, I got looser with the brush and was able to kind of glide it along and almost make the spots inky and flow more. Same thing, I tried mirroring the pattern on the other wing set and then added details such as the wing lines. They kind of remind me of leaves with the little veins. Here I'm going in with a little bit of blue to make the moth look fuzzier. Here's where I added tidbits of iridescent yellow and blue to the wings. Next moth is the Iodophora admirabilis. I love how baby blue it is, and the green is really interesting. My husband said it reminded him of fish patterns with the green and white stripes. It was fun trying to figure out the colors on this, and I definitely did it wrong at first, but I'm glad I took a look again at the reference image and just fixed it up. Sometimes you need to start over again and keep layering and layering until you get what you wanted. I feel like with the moths that I've painted in the past, or maybe the ones I'm drawn to, it's rare to see such bright colors all together, as well as more straight stripes. I feel like they're more organic on other moths, and this one is closer to like a clothing pattern. Like I could totally see this on a t-shirt. It was so interesting having to add stripes to the body as well. It was just fun keeping up with the patterns and seeing if I could mix the right colors to make it more accurate. I felt like the peach paint marker went pretty well for the moth line work on the wings. When the paint was dry, I added my black acrylic to do all the little details, and I felt like this really tied it all together. It made it look less like a fish painting you'd find at Marshall's and more like this unique moth that you'd find in the wild. I thought this moth was done, and then I looked at a picture I took of it and realized that the right inner C-wing was not the same distance as the left inner C-wing. So I had to paint over it, start again, and try to make it better. I want it to look as good as possible for my client, and also for them to really think it's worth the money and to be happy to have it on their wall. I'm sure they would have been fine with how it was, but I want it to look really good. So I added iridescent green to the stripes, a little bit of white for the fuzz. I even dulled out some of the edges of the wings because it looked like it was almost feathery in the image. And I just did a once over to make sure each color was accurate the way it needed to be. Added a little bit of glow in the dark to certain design elements, then went back in with the peach. Noticed the stripes were still not dry and had to fix that up later, but I was happier with how this was laying out. Then I added some UV resin to each of the moths to create a protective layer, which I do with all my moths, and hoped for the best. I wanted to make my pieces look more finished, so I added a dark blue to the back of all of these. I felt like the blue would tie all of them together. Then I painted over the blue with an iridescent color that went with the front of the moth. And that's still being worked on, but I just wanted to show you guys my process, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you are interested, check out my Etsy if you want to get a custom moth. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. See you next time, guys. Thanks. Bye.